We can do some exploring together. How about that? 骆宾河 abruptly jerked his head up. Really? 沈清秋 had known that he would react like this and calmly patted his head. Treatment first. 骆宾河 nodded, then with 2 cracks, he slotted his arm and leg back into place. He instantly straightened, using his perfectly whole hands to grasp Shen Qingqiu's arms. A soft flush rising to his cheeks as his eyes sparkled. I'm healed, Shizun. Let's do some exploring. A hole yawned overhead in the bamboo house, and the whistling wind funneled in through it. Shen Qingqiu lay on his back, facing the sky. Luo Binghe's weight was on top of him. Like a puppy, he licked and kissed down the line of his throat. He stared at the gaping hole above them, which had been blasted open by one of the Luo Binghes during their battle. Finally, unable to pretend he couldn't see it any longer, he said, "How about we change locations?" Luo Binghe raised his head. "No," he said obstinately. "Leaving the mountain and booking a room or whatever would be better than this." Shen Qingqiu had yet to comment when Luo Binghe repeated himself. "No changing." He said this very firmly. In all likelihood, the bamboo house was a very special place to Luo Binghe. After a spate of rustling, their outer robes fell to the floor, one by one, the teal and black overlapping. The last time they'd done this on Maigul Ridge, Luo Binghe had been in a daze. He didn't remember it very well, but he'd seen the disastrous aftermath and knew just how dreadfully he'd done. On top of that, he'd just suffered a massive blow to his ego, so he sorely wanted to put on a good performance. But he had no idea how to go about doing so. Watching him hesitate, Shen Qingqiu found him pitiful. He sighed and took the initiative. Luo Binghe's pale face flushed red, and Shen Qingqiu couldn't resist using a hand to scratch at his chin. This child really was quite adorable when it came to these things. Luo Binghe got into the mood with a quickness. He stared at Shen Qingqiu, squinting a bit through limpid, quivering eyes, and his breath too became slightly unsteady. "I'm afraid of hurting Shizun again," said Luo Binghe. "So it'd be better if Shizun did it." He spoke very earnestly, his expression sincere. He was seconds away from lying down before Shen Qingqiu hastily said, "No, it will be best if you do it." If Shen Qingqiu took charge, he didn't have any experience, okay? Even though he knew Luo Binghe would still be overjoyed, he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. There would be more opportunities in the future anyway. There was nothing wrong with going along with him a bit more or letting him taste a little sweetness first. In short, it unequivocally wasn't on account of being a little moved that Shen Qingqiu was offering to give up the lead himself. Goodbye, as if to encourage Luo Binghe, Shen Qingqiu patted his head and turned himself over. Shen Qingqiu was so ashamed that his face was burning, but unexpectedly, Luo Binghe flipped him back around. "What's wrong with you now?" he asked helplessly. "Shizun, do you really hate looking at my face that much?" Fine beads of sweat dotted his forehead. His nose was dusted red, and tears seemed to be shivering on the rims of his lids. Shen Qingqiu had absolutely zero doubts that if he refused again, Luo Binghe would burst into tears on the spot. Faced with this scene, he felt both embarrassed and tender. His heart melted. He couldn't help but say, "That's not it." Luo Binghe was on the verge of weeping. Heartbroken, he whined. "Then why does Shizun insist on having his back to me every time?" "You're really thinking about it too much. Where do all these little moods and ideas come from exactly?" Whatever. He didn't need his face. It would be better for Luo Binghe not to read into things too much. All right, Shen Qingqiu said recklessly. Cease this weeping. Are you ashamed? Luo Binghe's following actions proved that his tears held no value whatsoever. Oh, he said, and the moisture vanished as swiftly as it had arrived. He shamelessly pressed his head closer. Luo Binghe's hand shook slightly as he skimmed up a smooth inner thigh. Shen Qingqiu couldn't help but shrink back, finding it unbearable, enduring his shame. Shen Qingqiu truly wanted to light an entire Changqiu Mountain's worth of candles for himself. Suddenly, he detected something out of the corner of his eye. Close to Luo Binghe's heart was a hideous scar that cut right across his chest. It was from when Shen Qingqiu had pushed him into the endless abyss, where Shen Qingqiu had stabbed him right by his heart. He never once intended to hurt Luo Binghe, but time after time he had been the one to do so. That was the truth. Falling into a brief trance, Shen Qingqiu unconsciously reached out to touch that scar. His own tears flowed, spilling down. Luo Binghe froze for a moment and the teardrops pitter-pattered on Shen Qingqiu's cheek, pattering until he was left speechless. What are you crying for? It's because this disciple is too stupid. Two people crying at each other? What the hell kind of situation was this? Shen Qingqiu pecked Luo Binghe's eyes and cheeks, kissing away his tears. I'm fine. Everyone experiences moments in which they are less capable. Go on. They'd come this far. Shen Qingqiu made his decision and abruptly sat up, pushing Luo Binghe beneath him. The strength he'd been building for so long was exhausted in one go. Suddenly, a burst of tingling numbness swept through him. Taken by surprise, Shen Qingqiu's back went weak and he collapsed forward. Luo Binghe sat up just in time to catch him and folded him into his arms. Luo Binghe's senses were incredibly sharp. Shizun, he asked doggedly. Shen Qingqiu couldn't stop a couple of close-mouthed whines from slipping out. Having found the key, Luo Binghe officially went on the offensive. He had no technique at all, but it was precisely this that could strip a person of their last defenses. I'm so tired. Marshal brother, wait for us. I can't run any further. If Shen Qingqiu had been drunk on lust moments before, now his soul was about to flee his body. It was the disciples he'd sent to run laps around Qingjing Peak. Shen Qingqiu abruptly grabbed Luo Binghe's shoulder, wanting to get off of him. But to his chagrin, Luo Binghe clammed onto his waist. Shen Qingqiu opened his mouth, but Luo Binghe instantly blocked it with his own. Having tasted that sweetness, how could Luo Binghe let him go so easily? Huh? Why do I feel like that something is missing on top of the bamboo house? Bingfan asked outside. Is that a hole? You're right, Marshal brother. It really does look like a hole. When did that happen? Should we go and tell Anding Peak? Get them to come and fix it right away? Shen Qingqiu was terribly afraid of them coming in now, or of them telling someone else to do so. Then Ning Ying seemed to stomp her foot as she snapped. What are we going to fix? After running for so long, we're exhausted. If you want to fix it, do it tomorrow. All the disciples quickly chimed in. All right, let's listen to Marshal Sister. If Marshal Sister says to fix it tomorrow, we'll fix it tomorrow. Besides, Shizun doesn't like it when people even casually enter and clean Alua's side room, Ning Ying said. He definitely wouldn't be happy if we did anything without his permission. Haven't you gotten that into your heads yet? At these words, Luo Binghe's eyes flashed, and he abruptly pushed Shen Qingqiu onto the bed. As the disciples all headed toward the dining hall while muttering, 骆宾河 finally stopped covering 沈清秋's mouth. 世尊, murmured 骆宾河. Don't say that, 沈清秋 couldn't help but plead. To address him properly as a disciple to his master at a time like this, he was going to explode with shame 100 times over. No matter how thick his face, how shameless he was, he couldn't take it. But 骆宾河 suddenly murmured by his ear, 师尊, I couldn't find you on the other side. His voice was trembling slightly. 沈清秋 dragged himself back to attention. The me over there had so many people at his side, but he didn't have you. 世尊, I searched for a long time, but I still couldn't find you. The reason I became like that, was it because I didn't have you? A pause. I don't want to become like that. 沈清秋 took a deep breath and pulled 骆宾河 head toward his chest, where he stroked it. Don't worry. You won't become like him. And your 世尊 will never throw you away ever again. Demons had incredible stamina. This 沈清秋 knew. Male leads also had incredible stamina. 沈清秋 knew this as well. But that someone who shared both the demonic blood and male lead traits could last this long, that he had such profound stamina, 沈清秋 absolutely hadn't been mentally prepared for that. He just wanted to sleep. 世尊, said 骆宾河. 沈清秋 knew what he wanted to ask and mercilessly spoke first. Awful. However, this time, even after receiving criticism, 骆宾河 wasn't depressed. Rather, he exuberantly declared, Yes, it was awful. What are you saying? Because it was simply awful. This disciple requests that his 世尊 assist him with further exploration. Well,